kind. That has a wonderful ring, doesn't it? I love wearing one-of-a-kind outfits. The embellishing, of course, makes the outfit. Your choice of buttons, trim, and machine embroidery will customize your outfit and make it your very own. Today in my sewing room, we're looking at creative sewing. Don't be afraid to try new decorative stitches. Start a scrapbook of stitching samples. Then when you need that special touch, flip through and find the perfect one. Let's get started. This is the most adorable suit you will ever see. And by the way, it is one of a kind, and you will not meet yourself at a party with someone else that had the same suit on that you do. This wonderful collar appears to be a very expensive fabric that has been embellished. Well, guess what? It's a beautiful linen, but the embellishment has been done in an embroidery hoop. The buttons, oh, is this adorable or what? All of these little flowers are made from buttons and rickrack. Little curves of rickrack, lots of buttons, more curves of rickrack, more buttons. And then the ruffle is always a darling touch with the serged edge. And the sleeves and this bottom piece on the jacket have wonderful machine embroidery, once again done in a hoop on the plain green fabric. Even an adorable little button flower is on pants on both the legs. Isn't that cute? And you know the best part? As always, you know how I love things that are easy. So let's just see how easy it is to make button flowers. First of all, you trace on your designs. You really, and by the way, you don't do it with this black, you do it with a wash away marker, but you trace on your designs and then where you want your buttons to be. The first step is to zigzag the rickrack. Now, we've got to place those buttons there, so let's see how this is done. All right, I'm going to place my first buttons on the little dots, and this is just a piece of cellophane tape that is sticking them down. Before you go ahead and do any sewing, you will then come back and place the buttons on the second little row. Once again, cellophane tape holds them down. On this sample, all of the buttons have been placed and cellophane tape is holding them down, and of course your rickrack has already been zigzagged down. On the last step, then it is time, using the button foot on your sewing machine, it is time then to come in and just sew the buttons down, and you'll remove the tape after all the buttons are sewn down. I'm so pleased to have as my guest today my friend Connie Palmer. Connie is an Husqvarna Viking educator. She's also a Martha Pullen licensed teacher. And Connie, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me.
That adorable jacket you did. Show us how we do it.
Okay, it's really easy.
See, I like that one.
That's right. So all you have to do is sew the buttons on, and then it just makes the little flowers. So to start with, the first thing I need to do, I figured, was make a little template. So I just made a template out of paper and poked holes in it, and then cut a little slit right here so I knew where my stem would be. And then, of course, I used a permanent marker on the samples for you, but of course you would use a wash away pen because you don't want to get a permanent marker on your jacket. So all you have to do is just mark that, and then you'll know where you need to place your buttons. So next we're going to we're going to sew the rickrack on first. So I'm going to show you how to sew the rickrack on. It's very, very easy. All you have to do is set up for zigzag, and of course I have my line on there, so all I have to do is just follow the rickrack right on the line.
Is that an open toe embroidery?
This is an open toe embroidery foot. You know how I really like that.
You know what a lot of people love,
right.
Open toe embroidery foot.
So all you have to do now is just zigzag that rickrack right on there. Okay?
Okay.
When you're at the end, of course you're just gonna cut your little tail off like that, and you have that all done. So now we have all our rickrack on. Now you have to tape the buttons on with the cellophane tape. So I like to sew it down, tape it down just with a whole row first, and then go back and tape the little pieces, the little extra, the two little buttons, the petals, I guess you would call them. So just tape all those little petals on where they need to be. And now we're going to sew the buttons on. That was the easy part. So we're just going to set up our machine for sewing on buttons. We don't even need a foot. Let me get my hands out of the way here. And we want to, I'm going to just up that little stitch a little wider. Now, it'll just zigzag that button right on.
Did you drop the feed dogs?
You know what? The feed teeth drop automatically on this machine.
Oh my goodness.
So
when you set it on the buttonhole, sewing on a button. But now, Connie, if someone does not have that feature, they would drop their feed dogs.
Yes.
That's kind of a magic thing that drops automatically.
So now there's one button. So now we're going to come over here. We're going to just keep sewing the button, you know, one after another.
You think it's easier to do it without a foot?
It is easier because you can really see it.
Okay.
You know, you can really see your holes. So that's all you have to do is just keep sewing all those buttons on. And then afterwards, of course, you just, you know, remove the tape.
Let's look at these little, I just love the way you did the buttons on the sleeves and the buttons on the jacket. And can I turn it around to show everybody? Oh,
we had to have buttons on the back.
Oh my goodness, it's kind of like the Victorians. They made their backs of their garments as pretty as their fronts. And you've even done these adorable button flowers on the back too. And Connie, tell us once again about this wonderful fabric that you made on the bottom.
Well, that is from a mega hoop. It's you know, it's just a large hoop, and the embroidery just looks like you're you know, making fabric, really, making texture on your fabric. So I did that, and then I went back and used the a hoop that just does endless embroidery. So you can just keep pulling your fabric through. Right, to put the scallops on the bottom.
Oh, Connie, this is just so wonderful.
Thanks.
And now, Connie has some sewing inspiration she has made to share with you. Connie, you know how I adore precious children's clothes. Now tell us about this adorable little baby romper.
Well, it's just a little, a cute little piqué romper with embroidery, and you'll notice there's no elastic. You like that look, don't you?
I do, and I think the pattern you can either use elastic or not. But Connie, my antique rompers, the ones I have, and the ones in my, when I go back to the 1900 and 1910 magazines, they were left open like this. They did not have elastic, but either way, those little fat legs, wouldn't that be cute on little boys?
It's just more comfortable. It looks boxy. It looks so cute.
Oh, how adorable.
Isn't that cute?
Connie, tell us what you did.
Well, I used a hoop again that was an endless, does endless embroidery, and to do the mermaids. And then on the ruffle, you can see that instead of hemming it, I serged it with a rolled hem with a color just to make it look really cute.
What I just love here is your white, and then you have the wonderful printed, you actually have two printed fabrics.
Yes.
The ruffle with the serger, and then the little fish, and then the mermaid swimming around.
To kind of coordinate.
That's so fun and cute.
Thanks.
I think all my little granddaughters would love that.
I know it.
And of course, you know how I love the white baby dresses.
Oh, I know.
This is so wonderful with the eyelets, the broderie anglais, and the skirt is what I think is so beautiful. Connie, tell us about that.
Well, that on the bottom of that skirt, I used the broderie anglais, where it does the embroidery in the hoop, and then all you have to do is cut the eyelets out, and then of course the bow is done with a cut work. That's a cut work bow. I wanted it to look like an antique dress.
Well, it does. It's magnificent.
Thanks.
Oh, fun, fun. Here we go again.
This is summer fun right here, isn't it?
Summer fun, yeah. So darling, the little flip-flops now, tell it, were these done in the
Yes,
embroidery
those
machine?
were done in embroidery. That is an embroidered design, but of course you could just applique it, maybe put a little bow and a button instead of the embroidered flower on there, so you could really do your own thing. And then coordinate the fabric.
Piping and use 2 or 3 or 4 different kinds of different fabrics.
Kind of adds a little
I just
zip.
love the way, they're zippy.
Yeah, they're zippy.
Now this one is elegant. I wouldn't call this one zippy, it's just beyond elegant. Connie, tell us about this collar.
This is a Madeira collar. That's one of our favorite things to do, is the Madeira with the little tatting around the edge, and then just added the little bullion embroideries. And of course, again, those could be done by hand if you needed to have that.
Well, Connie, these are just so beautiful.
Thank you.
Oh my goodness, I think if you're missing any of these, as we
I'll
leave the
come
sewing
look for
room,
you then.
you'll have to come look for me if you're missing any of these.
Okay.
And now Connie has some really fun scrapbooking ideas for you. Connie, I think you would like to spend the whole show talking on this segment. Go ahead, show us what you have.
Because this is our new baby. It's a precious little puppy that we just got, and her name is Baby Girl.
What kind of a dog is she?
She is a mutt.
Oh.
But she's part Chihuahua, and we don't know what part else.
Oh, Connie,
but
Baby
she's
Girl.
Very cute, Baby Girl. Well, I knew I'd be saying, "Come here, Baby Girl," so I just named her Baby Girl. It was just easier. But she is very precious, and I know all of you out there have little precious pets that you like as well as I like this one. So I did a scrapbook page for her. And of course I just cut out ovals, and of course she's a sewing dog, you know, too. So
is she on a mat?
Yes, she is. So I just cut out ovals and put all her little precious pictures on there, and then made her birthday, showed what her birthday was. But I want to talk about this paper, because the paper is what I call cheater paper.
Okay.
It's already printed in these squares. It looks like I've sewn them all together, but really it's just printed that way. So what I did was, and that's what I'm going to show you, is I just used a decorative stitch where all the colors connect to one another. So it looks like then that I have sewn all the pieces of paper together.
But kind of you could sew all different pieces of paper together, but you
right,
didn't have to.
Right, but I would look for the cheater paper.
Oh, so is that available at craft stores?
Anywhere
really
you
easily
can get,
available?
sure. But if you don't, like you said, you could just certainly make your own paper. But then it just looks like that you have sewn all those pieces together.
It looks like you've done crazy patch
Yes,
for baby girl.
for baby girl,
Oh
right.
my goodness,
Yes.
Connie. You know what? So many of our ladies love, and by the way, talking about your sewing dogs, so many of them do have a dog or a cat that stays in the sewing room with them and just loves the sewing machine. So does baby girl stay in your sewing room?
Yes, she does, right by my feet.
Oh, but if you had a cat, it would probably be up right by the sewing
Probably the
machine.
sewing machine. And she chases the thread and, you know, all kinds of little stuff.
how
And I think
fun.
y'all know what I'm talking about.
Listen, the ones that have pets out
They
there,
know.
I promise
They
you,
know.
they know what you're
That's right.
talking
That's
about.
right. So they're very soothing.
Connie, thank you
You're
so much
thank you
for
having
sharing
me.
baby girl with
You're
us.
welcome. She's a star now.
She is. You'll have to tell her when you get home.
Okay,
She's
I will.
Forever and ever, all
That's
over
right.
the country. Well, actually, out of the country too.
Okay, great.
Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Connie, as always. And next, we have some machine embroidery techniques for you. I'm so pleased to have as my guest today Lindee Goodall. Lindee is Vice President of Creative Designs for Cactus Punch. Lindee, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Martha. It's great to be here.
And what surprises do you have for us today?
Well, today we're going to be working on sheer fabrics. And shears can be difficult because we need to use a lightweight design and we want a stabilizer that's going to go away. These designs were designs that were just regular designs, but I enlarged them. And by doing that, I spread out the stitches so they stay softer. And so you can see that on here, you can crush this fabric and it still stays soft and drapey. Now you have another blouse over here.
This is so wonderful. Oh.
And these designs were digitized especially for this kind of embroidery. They were digitized to be very light, very airy, and breezy.
And Lindee, I love that you've chosen the dark brown and then this wonderful creamy with the very light and airy and breezy. This is really fabulous. A chocolate brown skirt, and I might have to take this home with me.
Oh, I don't know about that, Martha. So let's look at a scarf. Here we have a scarf that uses the same technique. And this is a much simpler project to make. So if you're not up to making a blouse, you might want to just work on a purchased scarf or even just try out the rolled edge on your serger.
All right.
So we need to talk about stabilizers because we need a stabilizer that will support our design but will also not show when we're done. We don't want the stiffness in there, we don't want the visibility. And with the very light designs, we can usually use this very lightweight water soluble. Now if you have a heavier design like on the first blouse I showed, you'll want to go with a heavier water soluble, and this will support quite well. Now another problem we have is these fabrics are slippery and they're thin and they slip in the hoop. So when I've got my fabric and my stabilizer in there, I'll probably need to put something in there to keep it from sliding through the hoop. Especially when we work with these long, straighter hoops, it tends to slip in the straight areas on any hoop. This is a hooping aid. It's kind of almost like batting, and it has a little tack to it, so it keeps your fabric from slipping, and it works really, really well. If you have a hoop that this doesn't work with, you can always make one from cutaway. And what I've done is used a sturdy cutaway, taken my inner hoop, laid it on here and traced around, you can see the line there, and cut about, half an inch or so, quarter of an inch within that. And you just hoop it in here just like this, and it works great. Now another thing that works well with these designs, because they're very light and airy, is you can use these heavier yarns that are wool acrylic blends. And this is not a normal kind of yarn or thread that we would use with embroidery. It's just simply too thick, too heavy, but it works great with these designs. You could put these designs on sweaters and work with these kind of fibers, and it works really, really well on sweaters.
Lindee, do you mostly hoop things?
Yes.
When you do machine embroidery?
I really prefer to put my fabrics in the hoop because the hoop adds stability to the whole project. I know a lot of people just like to stick it down, but I really feel more secure if it's in the hoop. Now, if I do have to stick it down, I like to baste in the hoop because that'll help hold it in place while the whole embroidery happens.
Well, Lindee, these are truly beautiful garments. I just think that this is magnificent and looks like it was came from a very, very expensive store. As a matter of fact, you probably couldn't get anything this pretty in a very, very expensive store. I absolutely love what you've done, and thank you for sharing these tips.
Thank you, Martha.
On working with sheer fabrics and our wonderful machine embroidery. And now I have a quilting segment for you on our Hearts and Stars Quilt. I'm going to share a little bit about applique.
This quilt is going to make those of you very happy who love traditional quilting, and it's going to make those of you very happy who love heirloom quilting because it is a wonderful combination of both. This Hearts and Stars quilt is one of my favorites that I've ever seen. Let's look at some of the details before we start on a technique. These wonderful borders are just little strips of fabric. These are kind of the 1930s reproduction fabrics, which I happen to love so much. My mother was in high school in 1930 and started college in 1930, and I feel sure my grandmother used a lot of these in her quilts. Then we have the beautiful machine embroidered roses for those of you that love machine embroidery, and that's a lot of us. And by the way, the quilt is stippled all around the stars. Then we start with our stars. This first star has a beautiful little lace-shaped heart on white fabric, and as you can see, the purple fabric shows through. More beautiful machine embroidery, and then we come over here to the next star, which is applique. That's going to be the one we're going to do today. Now come on over a little bit. This star is this has a kind of a shadow technique that I'm going to share with you on another show. But you see it has the green shows through not only behind the fabric, but behind the middle, because that's a little shadow technique. Once again, more of the beautiful machine embroidered flowers and blanket stitch around the border. Now, let's get a close look at this one because it's closer to me. This one is the machine applique. It's so easy, just a little applique heart, and you can see the fabric. It's kind of a yellow and a gold and a black, darling little fabric, very typical of the fabrics of that era. Look at the wonderful machine stippling too. I just love white stippling on white fabric. That's one of my very favorite things in quilting. Now we've got the applique, the machine applique. Let's just see how easy it is to do. First of all, you're going to work on a piece of fabric. You remember when we had the white fabric that the little print showed through, and I'm going to trace off the design. In this case, it's a heart. And you know what is easier to do, I think? I think it's easier to trace the design. And by the way, always use your wash away markers. We use a little bit darker just so you can see a little bit better on the show. But you're going to trace your design, and you have to mark the center of the fabric so you'll know exactly where the center of the little heart is going to go. All right, and by the way, use dot, 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 dot. Makes it a whole lot easier, and it's less of the wash away marker to come out a little bit later when you just use dots. All right, we've marked the center. We've pinned the heart on the center. Next, we're going to straight stitch around the heart, attaching the heart to its little background fabric. All right, after it's straight stitched, the next step is going to be to trim away real closely, and I'm going to use small scissors here. I'm going to trim away very closely. Be careful and don't cut it. But I'm going to trim away really closely all the way down into the point and all the way around the heart. In other words, I'm going to cut away the excess fabric. Now remember, all I did was straight stitch around there. And then, you know what, you can use a tiny zigzag if you want to. You don't have to straight stitch. Then the next step is going to be, I'm going to sew it. Now, if you will use an open toe embroidery foot, that is the one that I think is the easiest when you're doing machine applique. And set the width any width you like, but of course we've got to cover up either that straight stitch, and actually it's a tiny zigzag. So let's go ahead and just do a machine applique. And you're a zigzag. If your machine, some machines have a fancy stitch that is just for applique, and just curve really, really gently to be sure you try to get a straight line. In other words, the center of that machine embroidery foot, the center of the open toe applique foot should hopefully go right down the center of that zigzag little line that you just drew. And so I'm going to applique all around, and then it's totally finished. When I finish the applique that goes all the way around, turn around and finish it up to the top. Then this is what it looks like when the applique is done. Of course, I'm going to take out my wash away all the marks, and then I will apply this whole piece to the center of my star for this beautiful Hearts and Stars quilt. And then actually, you know what would be fun? Just any kind of technique you want to go on this little center piece. And next, I would like for you to come along with me. I want to share with you a piece from my antique clothing collection. As many of you have heard me say, my husband Joe says I have an unnatural attraction to Victorian white clothes. Well, I don't know that it's that, but Joe has taken me all over the world for me to collect these wonderful clothes, and I have enjoyed so much and am enjoying so much bringing them to you in the last part of Martha's Sewing Room. Now, I want you to look at this magnificent little girl's dress. It has so many beautiful embroideries on it. By the way, it's made by hand. Now then, this, if you look at the top, there are wonderful little batches of embroideries that have 3 little leaves. And then this is what's so interesting. The ribbon slot or the beading is it's a buttonhole, and they're made 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2 around. Then entredos is used where we attach the bodice to the skirt. By the way, let me share with you too that entredos, which means in between the two, entredos is used to also attach the sleeves. And if you will come down and look at the next place where something is attached, you will see entredos is used to attach the gathered part of the puff sleeve to the tucked part of the puff sleeve. Once again, entredos is used to attach the little baby gathered lace. Now I am going to hold this skirt open for you because it is totally and completely glorious. It has little bitty pieces, big pieces, tiny little dots. The fill-terre though in the middle with this beautiful bow that comes out from the top, and then there are bows on the side. You see that open work, it's called fill-terre. And then there are more little pieces and more little dots. And this beautiful embroidery goes all the way around the skirt, starting high in the top and then moving around. And I have to show you the back because, as is true in Victorian pieces, the backs were many times just as pretty as the front. Now let's go back up to the top of the back again. More of the pretty little embroidery, little sprays of flowers which go all the way over to where the sleeve meets the bodice. And you see this is completely covered. It's a completely hidden placket. The 3 little buttons close it. And those little buttonholes that the ribbon was run through, well, then we tie the ribbon for the sash of the dress. Coming down on the bottom of this little dress are just some more little dots, and almost looks like little daisies there. Anyway, one of my magnificent pieces is this one hanging here I'm showing you today. For my Sewing from the Heart for today, I have a letter from Sarah Lou Shetter from the Lakeview Baptist Church in Rome, Georgia. Dear Martha, just a note to tell you that women of my church, the WMU group, the Master's Hands, have done many things in sewing. We have made blankets for the stillborn babies at the Georgia Baptist Hospital in Atlanta, turbans for cancer patients, lovey, meaning sock babies for preemies, and a lot of other projects. Our group wants to always be doing something with our hands for others. Right now, we're quilting 2 quilts for presents from a mother whose husband died last year. They are made with the father's old neckties as gifts for her children. They are going to be really special for those children. We just love to do for others, showing our love for the Lord through our sewing with our hands. Again, this was from Sarah Lou Shetter from Rome, Georgia. I am so glad you came to join me in my sewing room today. Won't you come back next time?